I'd like to call the meeting to order. Clerk Segris, call the roll.
Trustee Anthony.
Present.
Foster.
Good evening.
Graham Hudak. Looks like not currently here. Segrist here. Slavens.
Good evening.
Snyderman.
I'm here.
And Williams.
Hello. Call for adoption to approve the agenda with the amendment of a discussion item from Leisure Services and the township team as not an RBA, just a discussion. And then addition of G0, acquisition of additional envelopes for the clerk's office, which there was, the numbers were just run through late this evening. So hopefully the board will be patient and allow us to discuss that item. And that's the addition of G0.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor of the agenda as presented, please say aye. By roll call
Aye.
vote.
Oh, Anthony.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Segrist, aye. Slavens.
Aye.
Snyderman.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye. Have approval of 3 sets of minutes tonight. The call for motion to approve the August 18th, 25th, 2020, and the September 1st, 2020 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Support.
Roll call vote.
Anthony.
Yes.
Foster.
Aye.
Segrist, aye. Slavens.
Aye.
Snyderman.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye. Now is the time in our agenda for any citizens' non-agenda items. Anybody would like to make comment, a public comment, now would be the time to do that. You have a couple ways of getting Clerk Segrist's attention in the Zoom meeting here. One is raise your hand or punch *9 on an iPhone. And that will signify to Clerk Segrist that you have interest in making public comment. Is there anybody that would like to make public comment at this time? Clerk Segrist, do you see any raised hands?
I see no raised hands.
Treasurer Slavens, call for a motion to pay the bills.
Mr. Supervisor, I make a motion that we pay the bills. Support. Thanks.
You, Summer. Those in favor of the motion, roll call vote, please.
Anthony.
Yes.
Foster.
Aye.
Graham Hudak.
Aye.
Segrist, aye. Slavens.
Aye.
Snyderman.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye. Thank you. Now we're going to go into a public hearing. We have a motion to go into public hearing to discuss millage rates for the December 1st, 2020 tax levy.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that the board open the public hearing on the millage rates for December 1, 2020 tax levy at 5:03.
Support.
The Township Board is required to hold a public hearing on the proposed December 1st, 2020 millage rates. The 2020 millage rates must be certified to Wayne County by September 30th, 2020. Millage rates requested are required to balance the fiscal year 2021 budget. The combined millage rates of 12.3220 mils for the December 1st, 2020 levy is a reduction of 0.13 mils from 2019. This reduction is a result of the Headley Amendment rollback to the roads millage. Additional background was provided in your packet. We have with us Director Trumbull, our Finance Director. Is there any additional comments or you'd like to make at this time, Wendy, in addition to the summary?
I don't have anything further to add unless anybody has questions.
Okay. What I'd like then to do at this point is maybe go out to the public for public comment. Do you have any raised hands or *9s out there?
No raised hands. So if you call for public comment 3 times and nobody says anything, we can close it and then we can discuss the taxes.
Okay. Is there any public comment at this time? Is there any public comment at this time? That's thrice requested. Call for a motion to close the public hearing if there's no raised hands. There's Michael.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to close the public hearing at 5:05.
Second.
Support.
All right. Do we need to have a roll call vote on those items that we just did?
Yeah, roll call vote to close. Yep.
Please, okay.
Anthony,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Graham Hudek,
Aye.
Segrist, aye. Slavens,
Aye.
Snyderman.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye. So I think most folks will be happy with any reduction we can pass through to them. Are there any board comments or questions for Director Trumbull or any of the directors at this time, or myself?
Would you like me to make the motion?
Please.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that the millage rates to be levied by Canton Township on December 1, 2020 be set as follows. The charter mills for the general fund of 1.4760. Fire protection special assessment in the amount of 3.7480. Police protection special assessment in the amount of 5.6760. And the roads assessment 1.4220 for a total combined millage of rate of 12.3220.
Support.
Okay, still not seeing any raised hands or comments at this time. Call for a roll call vote on the village rates.
Anthony,
Yes.
Foster,
Aye.
Graham Hudek,
Aye.
Segrist, aye. Slavens,
Aye.
Snyderman,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye. Moving on now to, we have a single item on the consent calendar to be read as a single motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that the board approve the consent calendar as presented with item C1 only. Consider second reading of an amendment to Appendix A zoning of the Code of Ordinances regarding the dead rezoning.
Support.
Okay, call for a roll call vote on the motion.
Anthony,
Yes.
wait, okay, sorry. All right, the consent calendar.
Ah.
All right, Foster,
Aye.
Graham Hudek,
Aye.
Segrist, aye. Slavens,
Aye.
Snyderman,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Sorry about that, everybody.
Okay. Now, if there's no objections, I did send out the PowerPoint presentation that we had, the Leisure Services was asked to put together. In light of just the end of last week, the governor made an announcement on Wednesday. Details were not really clear until Thursday. And then Greg's team kind of started to scramble together to figure out, Friday and then over the weekend and then today. What does that mean to our Leisure Services operations as well as how may that impact the rest of the organization? So Greg, what I'd like to do is turn it over to you, if that's okay, and your team.
That is very much okay with me and my team. I do have John Lefevre, our Deputy Director, and Jason Lombardo, our Facility Supervisor, in the room with me tonight to help answer any questions that you may have. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with the PowerPoint presentation that I shared earlier today so that you all can see that and follow along. I want to be very brief with this, but also make sure to note that as of right now, we don't have all of our final plans in place. We're just working on those plans. We just want to include the board in on the information that we're working towards and see if there's any questions, comments, or a general consensus as to moving forward or not with these plans. So last week, actually on Thursday, the governor, we were anticipating that she was going to release an executive order on Wednesday, which she did not. She ended up releasing it on Thursday afternoon. She released Executive Order 175 and 176. 175 specifically addressed the opening of indoor gymnasium, fitness centers, and the like, which allows gyms, fitness centers, et cetera, to reopen starting tomorrow morning, actually. This is not an exhaustive list of all of the requirements in the executive order, but just the key items that we need to be aware of. Obviously, we need to make sure we follow all of these, but these are the most impactful ones. Mandate wearing face coverings or a mask at all times except when swimming, limiting facility capacity to 25%. Configure your workout stations so they're 10 feet apart or 6 feet with barriers. Reducing class size to enable 6 feet of separation between individuals. Provide cleaning equipment throughout the facilities for use by our guests. Regularly disinfect our equipment. Make hand sanitizer, wipe, soap, water, etc. available to guests, and increase our circulation of outdoor air as much as possible so it's not recirculated air. So with that, what we are proposing is to look at reopening October 5th. So we could reopen as early as tomorrow based on the order, but we're proposing to hold off until October 5th. And at that time, we would open the fitness center and aerobic center for use of fitness equipment, because we would be relocating some of the fitness equipment to the aerobic center in order to provide that proper spacing, which may also include shutting down some of our equipment or blocking off certain pieces if we can't provide enough spacing. Fitness classes would be relocated to the gymnasium or banquet center, or depending on the class. The walking track would be open, but we would close the middle lane and use it for walking only. Dancing Feet, who rents the second floor for dance programs, would be relocated to the Maple Oak room and be required to comply with all the social distancing rules and governor's orders on gatherings. And then we would open restrooms for our guests, but not the locker rooms. So remaining closed at this time would be the aquatic center, which includes the sauna, steam room, all of our pools. So under the order, we could potentially open those facilities, but we've actually started moving towards some of the capital improvement plan items that we have on the CIP, which will require a shutdown of the aquatic center. It includes replacing the roof and all of the tile throughout the aquatic center. So what we're looking at doing is taking advantage of this time to do all of those items prior to reopening, so that we don't reopen the aquatic center and then several months from now shut it down again to do maintenance items. So we want to do those all prior to opening, ideally. Club 55, the senior center, would remain closed. We'll continue to offer our virtual programming that we discussed at our last program, and any outdoor programming that we can offer as well. Kids Corner, classrooms, and banquet rentals would remain closed. Gymnasium and racquetball courts would be repurposed for fitness classes and stretching rooms only, so there wouldn't be like drop-in basketball or anything like that. Again, our locker room, shower facilities would remain closed. Just the restroom portion of our locker rooms would be open for the public or for members. Why did we choose October 5th? I think this is important. Number one, we didn't want to rush. I know many facilities are opening tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. We didn't want to rush and then miss something. We wanted to make sure that if and when we open, we do it right the first time, so that we're as safe as possible for not only our guests, but our employees. We want to make sure we keep that in mind for everybody. We need to enable the reassignment of staff to focus on summit operations. Many of our staff, including Jason Lombardo, who's with me tonight, he's been working a couple shifts a week at our golf course or at the sports center. So one day a week in the office has not provided the time that we need to develop all of our procedures for reopening of the summit. So we need to get those staff back in their primary roles so that they can prep for proper reopening. Provide time to develop those procedures and move stuff around throughout the facilities, our fitness equipment. We need to hire and train new and returning staff. So there's going to be a whole new set of procedures in place for any returning staff, and there's going to be potentially several vacancies on our part-time staff because we've been shut down for so long. May have moved on to other employment opportunities. So we anticipate some of those folks may not come back to us. We need to finalize our cleaning and preventative maintenance. So a lot of our equipment hasn't been dusted or oiled or greased because we haven't done anything with treadmills in 6 months. So we need to fire those up and get them all ready to operate again. It also gives us time to monitor any issues or outbreaks that may arise over the next month. And we can react to that to say, based on that, we want to implement different protocols than what we're thinking of today, or do we, at some point, if we see that just, a fair amount of gyms are having outbreaks, we can reassess and say, you know what, we're not going to open on October 5th. We're going to kick that can down the road a little bit longer if we feel it's not safe at that point. But also we want to be mindful of the fact that if we wait too long, we're potentially driving our members to other facilities. We've already received several emails from members over the weekend asking if we're going to be opening up on Wednesday. They are eager to get back and be in our facility and get back to their regular routine. So we don't want to drive them away, but we want to take our time to do things right as well. Safety measures that we're looking at, we're going to follow the orders with requiring anybody who's in the building to wear a mask at all times. Daily temperature checks on our guests, or not on our guests, I'm sorry, on our staff. Hand sanitizer available throughout the facility. Cleaning supplies provided. Typically we have just wipes available, like facility wipes for our guests, but we're also going to have some sanitizer spray and towels for the guests to use as well, so they can do additional cleaning and more thorough cleaning prior to and after using any of our equipment. We're going to be reconfiguring the equipment to have social distancing. If we can't do that, we're going to put barriers in place. And if we can't do that, then we may close certain pieces of equipment, or maybe, half our treadmills are available. We're going to increase our cleaning, so that may increase staffing as well. We're going to include a midday closure, probably from like 2 to 4 p.m. We don't have our final hours determined as to when we'll open and close each day, but we are planning on implementing a midday closure for a couple hours to go through and use some of our sanitizing equipment to do an extra cleaning. Any activities such as fitness classes are going to be scheduled in a way that provides us time to clean any equipment in the room prior to the next class, so it wouldn't be a back-to-back session like we often have. Signs posted throughout the facility and outside talking about best practices and how to mitigate the spread of any virus. Continually monitoring the capacity so that we're not exceeding that 25%. We're going to modify our HVAC system so that we can increase our outdoor air circulation, and we're going to require members to check in and check out of the facility. Some additional considerations that we have is that we're going to have to, if we're going to move forward with the October 5th opening, we will need to increase some of our staffing that we currently have right now. Our staff are working 3-4 days a week. We're going to have to bring some of those people back right away to 5 days to get everything done. And that's going to have an impact. And we'll also need to start working on bringing part-time staff back, as I mentioned previously. We're going to have to get them in prior to October 5th to do trainings and those sorts of processes so that they're ready to go on day one. We can't wait till October 5th to bring them in. They'll need to start prior to that. They're not going to be working 40 hours a week or anything like that, but we do need to bring them back, which is going to be an expense to the township. There may be an impact on other department workloads and their staffing levels. For instance, our human resources department, I know the individual that works primarily on part-time hiring is working 3 days a week, and I don't know, obviously that'll be up to them to determine, but there may be an impact on them where they feel that they need to bring people back more to be able to meet the needs of our department as well. So I want to be cognizant of that and make sure that we're being fully transparent that there are going to be those effects. We're going to have to shift staff. Currently, we have our custodial and maintenance staff from the summit working a little bit over at the summit, but also working out of this building and our outbuildings. So we're going to have to move them out of these buildings back to the summit to get that facility prepped, which is going to have an impact on our custodial staff here, because those shifts that will be vacated by the staff that typically works at the summit will need to be filled by them. So they're going to have to, we're going to have to increase the number of days that they're working as well. We are going to have modified operational hours. As I said, I don't have exactly what those hours are going to be at this time. We're still working through all of that. And in this phase, we'll only have summit members coming into the summit. There's not going to be drop-ins or anything like that. So you would have to have a membership. We will sell new memberships, but we're not going to be allowing drop-ins or guests into the facility at this time. And based on all those different things, our expenses are going to increase. It's you know, if we're going to go from a shutdown state to opening and implementing extra cleaning and monitoring, it is going to cost more than we are spending today. And we're not going to go back on day one to our revenue as it was last October or last June or anything like that, because pretty much what we've been doing during this time is deferring people's memberships, and we're going to allow people the opportunity when we open. If you have a membership at the summit that we have put on hold for now, if you decide that you're not ready to come back to the summit, we're not going to activate your membership right away. We're going to wait until you're ready to come back. So we don't anticipate, plus with our decreased capacity being at 25%, we're not going to be running full bore. So we have to go into it eyes open that it will increase the subsidy initially to do this. But the reality is, any time that we open, whether it's this October or a year from now, the day we open, we're not going to be opening and looking like it was the day we shut down. People's habits have changed. People aren't going to be ready to come back on day one. But if we don't open, we're never going to get started on that process. So with that, I entertain any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, applause, whatever you want.
If I could, Greg, is maybe this is a good segue. I know Mike and Diane, we've been talking for weeks in terms of the election coming on. We're going into tax season now. And so they too, Diane, Mike, did you want to add anything kind of to this conversation of reopening?
Well, I know we've been, I brought my staff back full time. We're, collecting taxes. Tonight, people were still balancing and at 5 o'clock. So I need my staff back full time. And so I think it's important. We're here to serve the public, and having my staff here to answer the phones and answer the windows. I'd like to see Monday through Friday. I appreciate having them here for our residents.
Mike, anything to add?
Yeah, I think, well, there's probably a lot to digest, right? We've got the presentation from Leisure Services about opening up the township facilities potentially by October 5th, bringing people back online to start getting those facilities up and running. I imagine people are thinking about that and what their kind of level of comfort is on that. I am in favor of doing that, I think, but my concern or my angle on this is, I think I am looking at potential staffing shortfalls or issues for the November election. We have done a lot of work up to this point, a lot of work, and I think most importantly, human resources and finance. But everybody should be credited with the amount of sacrifice that we've all made up to this point, and the amount of work that was put towards ensuring that for a 7-week period, people were compensated. They were home, working in some, not working, some people working in some capacity, some people not working. We put together a pretty vibrant work share that up until July 24th, people were able to maintain their health insurance. They were able to have, and then be compensated financially above and beyond their typical salary. Obviously, Diane, the Treasury, the clerk's office, and I believe building, we went to full time. We brought people out of that work share in late June. And for us, my office, the reason was we had to prepare for the August election. And this is an interesting election year because election day becomes less and less significant as you start to see people voting from home and obtaining their ballot 45 days before an election. The work, most of the work, right, the bulk of the work now is, our busiest week for August, for the August 4th election was the last week of June and coming back from the July 4th holiday. That was our busiest time. That was when we had to process and mail out, at that time, 16,000 absentee ballots. And we had to then receive all of those back and then deal with an additional, 4,500 ballots over the counter. What we're looking at now is September 24th. We plan on mailing out probably 30,000 ballots, maybe 31,000 ballots. So double what we mailed out on June 25th. We have to receive back double those ballots. And then we're going to have to issue another 4,000 or 5,000 ballots over the counter. And this has been an interesting election year because the amount of TLC that the voters require is greater than I've ever seen before. There's concern about voting by mail. There's concern about people's signatures being ballot being thrown out because of a lack of signature. People want to check their signatures. People are trying to check their registration. We have received up to 3 ballot requests from the same voter, which is something we've never experienced before. And that then leads to 3 times as much work for that one voter. And we're going to see the need for voter registrations. That's going to start spiking as well. And we do voter registrations on the day, up to and on the day of the election. So we're onboarding a lot of precinct inspectors. We did a call out in the focus, and we've gotten a lot of interest. Like, we've built back what we lost in August, and then some. But we've got to get those people on board. I've got to find a way to train them safely. And so that puts us in this interesting position where I'm a little concerned. I'm more than a little concerned. I believe I need additional resources to successfully and safely administer this election. And since August 8th, we've been operating under an LOA with our 2 collective bargaining units, the TPOAM and the AFSCME. And I don't know how to individually spell out those letters. And then we've had an agreement with our merit employees as well, where people have been in some form of furlough. Some people have been laid off, right? We've got continuing part-time employees have been laid off, and they've been laid off going all the way back to the spring. But we've been in a work share, and the work share governs people's ability to work overtime. They do 1 day of furlough. And I went to the board and I said, I would like to use a staffing company like we have done in years past. You know, Terry Bennett, the clerk prior to me, used a staffing company. She used LaJoy Group. And they did menial clerical work because the TPOAM contract allowed them to do that. But we're in the unique situation where we're no longer operating under the contract. We're operating under a letter of agreement. And that letter of agreement states that members of the TPOAM union will be in a work share, essentially furloughed, and using up some of their PTO. And for some people, they also took a concession when it came to the short-term disability as well. So it is the position of that group that they are unwilling to allow the clerk's office to bring in a staffing company while their members are inside the work share. So where I'm at now is I'm short some of the employees that I've had in previous elections. I have less permanent full-time positions. Now I've been operating with people from other departments. And that got me through the primary, which, as I've already said, is about half the size of this current election I'm about to run. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. But a lot of those individuals have retired, quit, gone back to work full-time in some other capacity. And what I'm essentially saying is I can't run an election that's twice as large as the one I just did with less employees. And we've been, and HR has helped me up to this point bring in people to work 1 or 2 days here or there. But what I'm really looking for is to have my, the full varsity team out there, and to be able to utilize the staffing company just like I did in the past. And I can't do that while we're still operating under the LOA. Or I could do it, but I would be in violation of the LOA, at least according to one party's interpretation. And I think Human Resources agrees that that is correct. So what I'm essentially saying is, if we do decide to move forward, look at these facilities, open them up, and then as we look forward, like I would be asking, because in our July 28th meeting, we passed 3 RBAs. The first was an agreement with the Merit Commission about the updated furlough situation or work share situation for merit employees. The other was the LOA with AFSCME, and the other one was the LOA with TPOAM. And the timeline for those LOAs and those agreements was through January 31, 2021, or until the township resumes full operations, whichever is first. So what I'm essentially asking is, sometime before the week of the 24th, we consider resuming full operations, which would be bringing everybody out of the work share and people back from the layoff position, and doing that so that I could get my staff, my office completely staffed up, and then bring on that staffing company so I could meet the same staffing levels of the 2016 election and the 2018 election, which I've already established were substantially smaller elections than this election right now. That is, I think, my request of the political leadership in the township. And again, it's rooted in the fact that I don't have faith that we can successfully run a good quality election under the current staffing levels. I really don't. And I just couldn't go forward without communicating my concern to everybody. and inviting you into the problem solving process. So that's it.
Can I just make one other
And you are muted.
statement?
Sorry. Supervisor's muted.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, one other thing, with us open limited hours, and I know with the work share, it has helped a lot. But as we're moving forward, we're limited to how many people can come into the building. And so as I'm collecting taxes, because a lot of people, you can pay online, you can mail, use a Dropbox. A lot of residents like to come in and pay, whether they pay with cash or check, they like to come into the building. And we're limited to how many people can come in at a time. So you do sometimes, quite often, and I'm sure the clerk will start to see this with people wanting to go into his office, people are waiting outside. And so when we're limited from 9 to 3, it's a limit of how many people really can get into the building and be served by us. And so, extending the hours and including Fridays, I think would be very helpful for serving our residents.
Yeah, on top of that, so one thing I've looked at is because there's in a large segment of the population of Canton a severe fear around the mail right now and mail delivery with elections. I have looked at in October opening up Saturdays for quote early voting stations. Essentially, people could come in, request a ballot, vote their ballot, sign the back, and then turn their absentee ballot in. They would have essentially voted and have never had to leave the township, at which point they wouldn't have to worry about the mail. And I think that's a service other clerks around the town, around the state are doing, and it's something that I think would be a further drain on resources. I think it's something that people might like, but it would be something that would be almost impossible to do under the current process that we have right now. But I additionally would think having hours being open Friday as well as Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then having hours that are more convenient with people's work schedules would be a requirement almost as we get into this election. Because we can't have people. We can't have a lot of people in the lobby. And we are also piloting a process where people can check in electronically and be notified when we're ready for them. So potentially people could check in and then they would get a text when they can come into the building. So if it got to the point where there were more people who wanted to come in, then we could have, in our capacity, we could allow them to wait in their car and then be called in one at a time to be served by the clerk's office. And that's something that we're looking at implementing because I don't know that we're going to be able to handle the volume without some type of tool like that.
So, Mike, I think now's a good time. You laid out a presentation, and this is a board discussion. I don't think it's something that I need to invite public comment in on, but if there is any raised hands or star nines, I'd be interested to know that. Is there anybody looking to make public comment based on anything we've just said or done on our discussion?
I see no hands raised.
I wouldn't expect that. So I think what we're looking for from the board right now is simply a feeling from you all. Are you guys comfortable with couple things here? Number one, based on the governor's latest executive orders, reopening the summit facility at this time and moving towards engaging the public in our other facilities, as well as moving towards the reopening of the Township Hall Monday through Friday. back to business as usual, essentially. What is, yeah, Diane?
I just have a quick question for Greg. You had mentioned membership dues might be withheld if people don't, want to utilize right now until things are a little more clear. Are you gonna, just because we're the ones who sometimes collect the dues and then have to give reimbursements, are you gonna let members know about this so we're not taking the dues from their account and then they didn't want it? Or if you have a plan, if you could kind of get back to Bruce and myself on that.
Sure. So just in general, what we've done right now in our system is we've deactivated all memberships in the summit, and we're not going to just blanket reactivate everybody. What we're going to do is communicate with the entire membership that, okay, we're going to be opening Monday, October 5th, and upon your first visit back to the summit, we will reactivate your membership for you. So it'll be on an individual basis that we're going to reactivate those memberships. So for anybody, those that don't want their membership reactivated, they don't need to do anything. They just don't show up. Once you show up and say you want your membership reactivated, then we'll do that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any, for trustees, any comments, questions, concerns? Go ahead, Summer. You're muted now. There you go.
Thank you. Greg, I just have a quick clarifying question. You said 25% capacity in the summit. Is that 25% capacity in the whole building, or like 25% capacity in like the workout room where the equipment is? And because I know that in the summit, people tend to be kind of spread out, whether they're on the track or in the fitness center.
Right. The governor's order isn't clear on that, but the way we're interpreting it and the way that we're going to do it is utilizing the room capacity. Because if we use the entire capacity of the summit, I mean, just the gym, 25% capacity for that would be 100 people or 125 people. So we would be able to, I don't know what our total capacity for the entire building would be, but if we tried to pack that many people into the fitness center, there's no way that we would have the social distancing that would be required. So we're going to use the 25% capacity for the room that you're in.
Okay. Have you given any thought to like when we would be able to reopen the pool, or you're just not there yet?
Well, part of that's going to depend on moving forward with the construction of the roof and tile. So we just got bids back for the roof last week, and the bids are out for the tile. So once we get all those in and make a recommendation to the board on moving forward with those projects, then we'll be able to determine a timeline for that. But I expect it'll be from the time we award those projects, probably a 2 to 3 month process to complete all of those projects. So it would likely be towards the first of the year for the pool.
Okay.
Obviously, we would like it to be sooner, but we'll do what we can.
Thank you. I know the weather's changing, and so people aren't going to be able to use outdoor pools. So just curious about that. I'm fine with reopening the summit because it comports with the governor's executive order. So I'm fine with that. I think reopening Township Hall and bringing it back so that Michael can administer the election and Diane can make sure she has enough folks to serve the residents of Canton for tax collection. I think that would be good also.
Okay. I think I'm also looking, these will have collateral impacts in other areas as well. So HR department specifically.
Yeah.
So I think what we are going to do is just be looking at things operationally, because all along, to date, everything we have done is to meet the operational needs of the organization. We've done that to date successfully. Now we're going to start loosening up a little bit and move back to, new normal, or whatever we're going to call it going forward. So with that, the leadership team's got to huddle back up and say, okay, who's on first? How are we going to do this? And they'll do, as always, I'm sure, a fine job. And that's what I'm looking for, Summer, is just a green light from you guys or a thumbs down to move forward.
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Anne Marie, Stephen,
Yeah. Um, I agree with everything that's being said. And for the reopening under the governor's orders, Greg, thanks for the report. It covered most everything that we would need. The two questions that came to mind were one on the memberships, and you just discussed that a little bit. Are you saying that if you start your membership, it's at the full amount that we paid last year, or how do you know how much will be applied from the residents' money that they've given? And have you already given some money back in refunds? And how is that going to work?
So yeah, so if you were, say, if you had 3 months left on your annual membership, we put that membership on hold for right now. So when you do decide, if you decide October 5th, you're ready to start October 5th, you would have 3 months left from October 5th on that membership. So then your renewal date wouldn't be till November, December, January 5th then.
So, okay, so everybody, we don't go on calendar years, it's when you joined, you go by.
That's
Okay, so
correct.
everybody has a different amount remaining on their membership pretty much.
So
I got
it'll
you.
just be, when you reactivate, you'll have whatever time left on your membership. And we have done a fair amount of refunds throughout this time.
Oh, okay.
Don't know exactly how much, but pretty much every time that the orders have been extended, we get a new wave of requests for refunds.
And I know we weren't at capacity under normal times, but at 25%, is there a chance that we might fill up and people would get turned away from service?
Yeah, there is that chance, and we're looking at a few different options with that. I know some facilities are requiring or requesting that you make a reservation, say that you're going to work out from 10 to 11 today or 7 to 8, whatever the case may be. We're evaluating that to decide. So that's part of why we just need to get the staff back to focusing on the operations. We need to figure out what our best protocol is going to be for that, whether or not we are going to require that as we open. And by opening a little bit later than others, I can use my network of other facilities too to find out what is and isn't working for them, so we can steal their ideas.
Good idea. As probably Wendy Trumbull can attest, I probably can use 10-minute intervals for reserving, because that's about how long as I last in those classes. So
You do good. You do pretty good in those classes.
okay. Thank you. Then lastly, I guess we'll just be following orders. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but if they get closed again for a resurgence, we'll notify our members of that as well.
Right. And certainly if we operationally just see that there's a fair amount of breakouts out there, and the governor doesn't order things closed, but we decide as a community, you know what, we're not comfortable now that we're seeing the numbers elsewhere, we can certainly make that decision at that point. But by picking a target date, we can at least start working towards it.
Thanks. Sounds good to me. And as far as directors, Clerk Segrest and Treasurer Slavens, in any department that says they need more time to operate either with the public or more employees, I'm in support of it, especially with this unprecedented election coming up. It's going to be very impactful all around, and so I'm supportive. If that means opening our township to full production, then I'm in favor of that.
Thank you, Michael. Emery?
Thank you. So thank you for the presentation, and it's good we're doing this very slow. I'm wondering, I mean, we've had good success with the outdoor classes, and I know this is weather dependent, but is there even consideration of maybe continuing them because we can't get the capacity indoors?
Absolutely. Yeah. If the weather cooperates and we can continue to do outdoor classes, obviously come October, the weather starts getting a lot sketchier. We had to cancel our classes for today because of the rain. That will give us that flexibility. But if the weather cooperates and we have a mild fall, we can absolutely, we can even advertise classes that they'll be, outside or in the gym if, the weather dictates that way. So we'll kind of utilize all those spaces.
How's it been going at the outdoor softball area? Have you run into any issues, or how's that gone?
Things have been received really well out there. We have had no issues, knock on wood, so far out there. People are respecting the rules that we put in place. We've got spray painted markers on the ground out there, promoting social distancing. Having a section for one family and then a section that's blocked off and section for the next family. People are doing a great job of respecting that. We're encouraging in the common areas to wear masks, even though you're outside, and people are doing a great job, and things have really been going quite smoothly for us.
One area I'm concerned about are the seniors. I know we're not looking at opening up the 55 plus club, but I know there's an isolation issue there. Have you come up with anything, maybe doing some Zoom meetings with the seniors?
Yes.
And in touch, how's that going?
Yeah, so we're starting those. The classes haven't started yet, but we're promoting them, and they're going to be starting here shortly. And then we're going to be doing occasional outdoor gatherings, obviously weather permitting, with social distancing for them as well. So we're starting to I think those classes actually have started by now. So I don't have a report on the numbers for those, but we have started the Zoom programs at this point.
Okay.
I can get some information for on that though.
Great. Michael, you'd also talked about, and you and Diana touched on only having so many people in the township hall because of capacity and social distancing. Have you looked at maybe it's great that you're looking at that electronic version with having people come in. Have you looked at maybe setting up a room in the summit so you can bring more people in as the weather gets colder to register? Maybe use one of those large rooms so people can social distance.
Well, like a satellite.
Yeah.
I can only speak for the clerk's office. I have been disinterested in the satellite office option that some clerks are going with. Most of them are so that's an interesting kind of way of looking at it. If you remember from the primary, we were going to try to use the library for voter registration. We ended up not going through with that because the demand the demand didn't warrant it. We had not talked about creating a satellite office, primarily because the education component, so getting thousands of people to change their behavior without a good, solid campaign to educate them to do that, it might be like if you build it, they won't come problem. Would be my concern is putting somebody out there who can't be in my office, who can't be working towards getting us closer to the election, being out there and then having people not come. But it's a good concept of having a satellite kind of office for people to do business with the township. I don't know. I mean, we're currently, I think, in phase 3 here at the Township Hall. I don't know if we go to phase 4, what kind of a capacity requirement that would be. I'm not overly familiar with kind of how we transition from phases, but it's something to pursue. I think it's a good idea.
It's interesting, even just for temporary during the elections. If you see things, long lines of people, that might help. Just a thought.
No, I think it's a great idea. It just staffing it would be one thing, and but that might not be an issue if we get
That's right.
Yeah.
Good.
And the treasurer's office, we deal with a lot of large amounts of cash. So really it's best with us having the safety measures we have at Township Hall. So
Right.
it is a good idea, but for tax collecting and water billing, I wouldn't, I wouldn't want to do that.
That's true. That makes sense. So I'm in favor for bringing back employees. I mean, from what I understand, a lot of our departments definitely have the work, to serve the residents. So I understand the need to bring them back based also on what Diane, Michael, and Pat have said, and also for extended hours if we need them. I would agree. I'd go forward with that also.
Thank you very much. That kind of concludes that conversation. Now, leadership team will have to take the updated direction and pull it out. So thank you very much. Greg and your team, thank you for putting that together. Now moving into item G0, which a little bit unusual, guys. And again, hopefully you'll be patient with us here. As the requests for absentee ballots are coming in, Mike needs more envelopes, and the election's just around the corner. So Mike, you have a motion you could read to the group?
Yes, I do. And if it feels weird because you've already voted for more envelopes, it is, and you have already voted for more envelopes, and we are out, or we will be. There's a 4-week lead time. So from the date I tell them to print, it's going to take them 4 weeks to get us the envelopes, which is the reason why we're rushing this to tonight's board meeting. If I waited another 2 weeks, we couldn't get it. We couldn't get it out to you. I could tell them to print them anyway, but then Mike Shepard from Finance would be very angry at me because I shouldn't be committing funds without board approval because that's our process, right? So I did have an add-on item, and it's small amounts, but it's an alteration of a board-approved a board-approved blanket PO, which is why I would need to get board approval to amend it. Given that history, Mr. Supervisor, I move to increase the blanket PO number 2020-861 by $1,000 and increase the blanket PO number 2020-858 by $3,000. And the following budget amendment. An increase in expenditures in account 101-262.900_30, which is the elections account forms, by $1,000, and decrease expenditures in the account number 101-262.760 operating supplies in the amount of $1,000, and increase expenditures in the account 101-262.900_40 general printing account by $3,000, and reducing expenditures of the operating supplies account 101-262.760. It's one motion.
We have thank you. The support was from Stephen. All right. Is there any public hands raised there, Mike? Any star nines or hands raised?
I see none. Just so we're clear, I'm taking money from one election account and putting it in another election account, and then I'm asking you to increase the POs so we can buy forms and envelopes.
All contained in the existing budget. So just to move it on with some funds.
Yeah, no money coming out of fund balance or fund reserve. This is money that was allocated that's being appropriated from other area.
So are there any, I don't think there's any board questions, but there may be your comments. Any comments or questions at this time? Seeing none, roll call vote for the motion.
Anthony.
Yes.
Foster.
Aye.
Graham Hudek.
Aye.
Seaverstein. Slavens.
Aye.
Snyderman.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye. Thank you very much. Next up on the agenda, item G1, consider adoption of resolution for industrial pretreatment program. ITC.
Supervisor, I move to adopt the resolution to concur with in the rules and regulations concerning industrial pretreatment program as adopted by GLWA for 3 commercial businesses in Canton Township.
Support.
2018, Watua member communities, which we are a member of, began sending all the sanitary sewer flows to Ypsilanti Communities Utility Authority, Yucca, for treatment. In 2020, the termination agreement with Wayne County and Great Lakes Water Authority was finalized. As part of the agreement, there were 3 commercial properties that remained and still discharge sanitary sewer flow from Canton Township to the Gleewa system. All 3 businesses are located in the Pine Tree Development on Joy Road, east of I-275, and discharged directly into the Gleewa system. These developments were constructed on or around the 1960s and are connected to the Wayne County sewer system. By adopting this resolution, Canton Township's agreeing that the sanitary flow from these 3 commercial businesses will be subject to Gleewa Industrial Pretreatment Program guidelines. So all this does is allow them to operate after Gleewa standards as they're flowing their waste into the Gleewa system. So it's really a technical thing to kind of clean up the paperwork due to the fact that we pulled off of Wayne's system, went to Yucca, and we have these 3 properties that are from the old group still going to Gleewa, and then we got the Wayne County agreements just done a couple months back. So this is kind of crossing the T's and dotting the I's. And Jade's with us if anybody has any questions on top of what was just said. Is there any public comment or raised hands on this one? I would doubt it. Any trustee comments or questions for Jade? Seeing none, a roll call for the motion.
Anthony
Yes.
Foster,
Aye.
Graham Hudek,
Aye.
Seagerstai, Slavens,
Aye.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye. Item G2, consider appointment to the Historic District Commission.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to not have a crash on my RBA. Whoops. Sorry about that. Let me get this up and running again. 9/8 final. Okay, we are back in business.
Item G2, second page.
I move to approve the appointment of Bill Tesson to fulfill the rest of Rolf Welton's term on the Historic District Commission.
Support.
Okay. In summary, Ralph Welton was appointed to the Historic District Commission in 2006. Mr. Welton is now resigned by his current term, and it goes through April of 2022. To fill this vacancy, I'd like to appoint Bill Tesson to finish Mr. Welton's term. Bill is currently an active member of the Canton Historical Society and the Canton Rotary. He has extensive historical knowledge of the community and was inducted to the Canton Hall of Fame in 2018. So I'm sure many of you have met and spoken to Bill over the years. That's what this is about. And under our new process, Summer and Stephen, you were included in the conversation, correct? And
Yeah, and I think we're meeting in 10 days or sometime the week after next to review the rest of the year's committee appointments and the applications that have come in under the new process. Summer, was there anything to add to that?
No, I was just gonna say there's openings to a couple of boards and commissions, so people should make sure to apply.
absolutely. Please do. Okay. Any other board? Go ahead, Michael.
I just want to take this opportunity to acknowledge that Mr. Tesson is a precinct inspector, works on the elections, and he's an all-around good guy. He clearly does a lot in the community, but he does a lot with the historic district, with the historical society. So he's an excellent choice for the HDC, and also he fulfills his responsibility as a precinct inspector, which most people should do as well. So it's a good time to plug that.
Good. Steve, Anne Marie, not seeing any raised hands at this time. Call for roll call vote for the appointment.
Anthony,
Yes.
Foster,
Aye.
Graham Hudek,
Aye.
Segrist, aye. Slavens.
Aye.
Snyderman,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye. Item G3, consider budget amendment and PO increase for the clerk's election budget.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to approve an increase to the board approved blanket PO number listed for election testing from Election Source and the budget adjustment as follows. Increase expenditures to the professional contractual services account of $50,000 and decrease expenditures to the part-time wages account of $50,000, both contained inside the clerk's budget.
Support.
Okay, in summary, clerk's office would like to absorb increases for election testing by offsetting savings from other areas in the election budget. March election costs over $39,000 to complete testing, which was larger than budgeted due to the 120 ballot styles. The cost for the August primary was over $13,500. The remaining balance in the PO 2020-859 and in the account is insufficient for existing and future costs of testing. Therefore, this item is before you. Does anybody have any questions for Clerk Segrist? Or before we go do that, is there any public hands raised?
Say nothing.
Okay, any trustee comments or questions for Clerk Segrist? Straightforward. Seeing none, call for roll call vote on the item.
Anthony,
Yes.
Foster,
Aye.
Graham Hudek,
Aye.
Segrist, aye. Slavens.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Snyderman.
Aye.
Sorry.
Mixed it up and we followed you.
I know. I appreciate your fidelity there. I messed up the order.
No problem. Item G4, request to alter part-time wages for election inspectors.
Supervisor, I move to accept and concur with the Board of Election Commissioners for the Charter Township of Canton's recommendation approving new wage structure for part-time election inspectors.
Support.
Thank you. Canton Township currently employs up to 350 inspectors for an election. Election inspectors are a major component of the election process. Election Commission is recommending that they receive hazard pay in light of the increased physical safety risk and increased workload from a historical shortage of inspectors. Paying the following rates would result in a minimal budgetary impact. Fees or pays in the amounts of $300 for the co-chair. There are about 45 of those involved. $200 per inspector, $100 per student inspector of a half day. Current rates of pay are $160, $180 for vice chair, $190 for chairperson, $20 for training, $95 for student worker half day, $150 for the greeters of the day. And I believe that Clerk Segrist did have in Trustee Snyderman and Trustee Anthony, the what do you guys call the inspection election commission? Also reviewed this and also along with Clerk Segrist making the recommendations. So, are there any questions or comments from the public?
See none. No hands raised.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the trustees? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Summer, I think
Yeah.
Summer had her hand raised.
So I emailed Clerk Segrist when I saw the board packet, and I asked about the folks who worked in the AV counting board. I know that some of them worked extremely long hours during the primary, and I was wondering if there was a way to compensate folks who, worked longer than like 20, 24 hours, something like that.
If I may, Mr. Supervisor.
Please.
So this, in 2016, the rate of pay was a little bit lower than it currently is. Now, that was also the November of 2016 budget year was our kind of our greatest budget year. We spent $95,000 on wages for precinct inspectors. Your average election is right around 55,000. So this one was almost double. And part of the reason was the fact that we paid people twice as co-chairs. The other part is that inspectors worked into the next day, and we paid them twice as well. There also was a cell phone stipend, and one thing that I don't do that the previous clerk Bennett did is that people could be trained multiple times, and you would receive pay for going to multiple trainings. So you could go to training in March, training in August, and training in November, and you would earn $60 for that same training. That's a practice. You only make the training. You get paid. You get the compensation for going to one training. If I do a special chair training, you would also get an additional. You would get paid for that. But if it's the same training, you only get paid once. So there's a couple of reasons why the cost of that election skyrocketed, and one of them is there was they paid people twice. We don't. It's Human Resources and I interpret the law pretty clearly that the clerk is not up. There's no discretion for the clerk to pay people twice or to prorate salary. That would need to be approved by the Board of Trustees, because I don't have budgetary authority as the clerk, right? I might want it, but I can't just spend money like that. It's board approved. So I would be willing to amend this to allow for proration based on hour. If people work into the next day, we could pay them either double, or we could pay them a prorated salary. One thing we've changed is we don't have kind of non-professional precinct inspectors working the AV counting boards anymore. One of the things that the Human Resources Department has done is successfully recruited township employees to work the AV counting board. And this allows us to increase productivity. It's how we've been able to absorb the increased demand with all of the additional ballots. And the compensation package for those individuals is decided through LOAs with the unions and through the merit commission. So if we were to do something, I would say maybe we make an amendment to allow for the proration. If you want to do that, that would be appropriate. We have to create some incentive for people working in November. I don't know what that's going to be. I know some communities will pay people their base rate of pay for the first 8 hours, and then if they work the entire day, they could make the inspector salary on top of that. That might be something, but that would need to be vetted through HR. But if you wanted to do this approval with the caveat that we prorate anybody who works over a 24-hour period, I think that's appropriate. It wouldn't be a huge budget issue.
I think too, it's important to note based on things that I've heard today, Mike, from talking to you earlier today. And one, Canton Township is a top tier payer now. Is that a true statement?
Yes.
In the region, in the area across the region, we pay better than our neighbors in surrounding areas. So Canton Township is, when it comes to election workers, we are the top tier in terms of what we're paying out. Number two, Mike is doing a great job in terms of recruitment, and I think you're getting your positions filled. So it's not as if we're struggling finding election workers. And I cannot speak for Mike. Only Mike can say, hey, yes, we're the top tier in terms of what we're paying, number one. Number two, the people are coming in, so we don't have an issue today.
Yeah, my concern is just people who work longer than a 24-hour period, just making sure that they're compensated for that, because I know that that's happened in previous elections.
And, again, I'm not the clerk.
Yeah.
I'd be buying more machines so nobody's working 24-hour days, right?
Yeah, that's
Mike, if you could buy more machines, then you wouldn't have to keep people that many hours.
Yeah, and I want to thank you all for purchasing an additional copier, Canon scanner for me and an additional adjudication station. And I think what's important is, so the inspectors and the AV counting board in November were done counting by 9:30. You know, they knocked it out of the park. The technology failed them, and that leads to people having to wait an excessive amount of time. So by all indications, we've got an additional adjudication station, and we've got an extra scanner. So if there's any issues, we can swap out the old scanner, put in a new one. So we are all teched up at this point, and there's no indication that people should be working more than 24 hours. I am comfortable that we won't have people working 24 hours, in excess of 24 hours. I'm comfortable paying people more if they do. But I'm also, again, to speak to the supervisor's comments, part of the reason why we wanted to make this recommendation of an increased salary, because this would be a $40 increase for inspectors, for your base level inspector, which is not an insignificant amount of money, is because other surrounding communities had drastically increased the amount that they were paying inspectors. And most people don't work the elections, but most inspectors don't work the elections for money. You know, it's kind of like a hybrid of I'm suspicious of the process and I want to see it up close, or I love voting and our government and this is my form of community service. A lot of people don't even expect to get paid. And that's a nice bonus. But if someone can fulfill their civic duty in Plymouth Township and make more, well, then the fear for me would be we would lose them. In this scenario, we won't have to worry about losing anybody. But to your point too about paying people equitably, yeah, you know, I would be uncomfortable arbitrarily deciding compensation levels. I don't believe the law gives me that power as clerk. So if it's going to come from anybody, it's going to come from you guys. That's all I'm saying. And I think that there's merit for doing that. I would ask that we not do it if you work 25 hours, you make $600 as a chair. If you work 25 hours, you make $400 as an inspector. I think that might be excessive. I think if you're going to do it prorated.
How does this sound? Mike, you take what a typical inspection day would be for the chair. What would that typically be? What's normal? 14 hours, 12-hour day?
So polls are open. So I had a precinct chairperson break it down by hour for me to prove a point that chairs were drastically paid less because they come in the day before the election to pick up equipment. And then they come an hour early for setup. So polls are open 13 hours. They're going to be there an hour early probably, and they're going to be here at the township about 2 hours later to be received. So you're looking at, instead of a 13-hour day, which is what a normal inspector would have, a chairperson is going to have probably a 16-hour day on election day. An AV counting board is going to be kind of the same. If we do it right, if the equipment does what it's supposed to do, and you also approved to allow for somebody from the company, the vendor, to be there for on-site tech support, you should be looking at inspectors arriving at 7 a.m., doing 13 hours till polls close at 8, and then being done and received by probably, I would say, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, right? So you're looking at 13, 14, 15, you're looking at 16 hours there as well. So, $200 divided by 16 gets you $12.50 an hour under that model.
That's your prorated model, and then you give it some goose up for 1.5 or 2 times for every hour after.
That's,
Maybe what makes sense is let's if we could pass what Mike's presented to us today, let Mike take away for a week or week and a half, and then come back and make another amendment at the next board meeting, based on the recommendation Summers made, you know, it appears that there's a desire to do this for over normal. But to keep in mind, we are the top paying community right now in the region.
Yeah.
We're the top paying after we make this, approve
Yeah.
this RBA if.
Yeah.
Correct. I mean, I think we're still behind. I do think some jurisdictions are still ahead of us. But yeah, this is a huge, this is a, you take, this is a substantial, $40 increase over on $160 it's a 25% increase in salary for an inspector is not insignificant. But yeah.
And then there's also your numbers, right?
Did we
300.
lose Steven?
Yeah, looks
I
like
think he just turned his camera off.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So, Summer, is it okay?
Yeah, I'm fine with passing it as is tonight and having Michael take a look at it and maybe bringing it back when we have our next meeting. But I was just thinking that if folks were working extra long hours, it might be nice to give them some extra compensation, not just for typical 13, 14-hour shift.
Yeah, no, and just real quick, if you look at the background information, we break down what we would expect the payroll for this election to look like. So keep in mind it was $95,000 or $92,635 in November.
About 32,000 incremental.
What's that?
It'd be about 32,000 incremental, I think, based on a note I got from Anthony today.
Okay. Yeah. So, now this one we're estimating under this current salary model with the 25% increase for an inspector. We would still budget it. We're expected to spend about $54,000. So that's substantially less than we ended up spending in November of 2016. But that's also because we were paying people double. Many people got paid double, which is great for them. So there's room, and there will be, by the time this is done, there's I think the minimal estimate I saw from finance was that we would have about $30,000 left in that account. So there's still money in that account. If we wanted to do a proration, we could absorb it. I will look at that. I'll talk to Anthony. And if I can bring it forward. It's not time sensitive, right? I just want guidance from you all because I'm uncomfortable making that call because I just don't believe I have the legal authority to do it. So,
and we had an election commission go through this in detail, represented by Trustee Anthony, represented by Trustee Snyderman, to get us to this point. So maybe reconvene your election commission and go at it again.
We will be reconvening to appoint election inspectors. I would be comfortable bringing this issue before both of them. If they're, that would be good. And that will give us.
They're there, right? That's to help us get there.
Yeah. As long as, and that gives us plenty of time to do it. As long as it's done. If we're going to do it, it just has to be done by election day. That's it.
Cool.
Thank you.
Good conversation. Roll call vote for the motion.
Anthony.
Yes.
Foster.
Aye.
Graham Hudek.
Aye.
Seaverstein. Slavens.
Aye.
Snyderman.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye. That concludes our formal business for this evening. Is there any staff comment at this time? Any staff comment at this time? I see Chris, I see Chad. I don't know if Jade and Wendy are still with us. Greg's still with us. Jade, hi Jade. And Wendy, I'm not sure if she had soccer tonight or not, but I don't see any comment coming from staff. Any additional trustee comments at this time?
Did we pay the bills?
We did.
Okay. I don't remember all the motions we made at the start, so thanks.
No matter how hard I tried to get by it tonight, Diane never lets us get by it. We paid the bills.
That's right.
Any other trustee comments at this time? All right, seeing none, let's be safe out there. Call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.
Okay, Anne Marie second. Roll call to adjourn. Roll call vote to adjourn.
Anthony,
Yes.
Foster,
Aye.
Graham Hudek,
Aye.
Seagrist, Slavens,
Aye.
Snyderman,
I
Williams.
Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, guys. Have a good
you.
night. Be safe.